Here goes. I sped. I followed too closely. I ran a stop sign. I almost hit a Chevy. I sped some more. I failed to yield at a crosswalk. I changed lanes in the intersection. I changed lanes without signaling while running a red light and speeding. WEGL Auburn.
Good afternoon and welcome to National Sports here on WEGL 91.1 FM. I'm your host, Jared Dillard. It is November 20th. It is the final day of classes here at Auburn University. You probably don't even care what's going on today. You probably skipped some of your classes. You're probably on your way home to see your family, to see your friends, to see your loved ones. And you know what? Nobody can blame you because everybody here in student media is packing up for the day. It's time to have that week off, get ready for finals, and then just go into the Christmas break and be recharged for the next semester. I know this semester feel like it's dragged on for far too long. Ready to get it over with, ready to get it out of the way. But there still is today. I know I have my radio show right now, and then right after the radio show today, Auburn soccer takes on Texas Tech, looking to find their way into their first Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. Britt Bowen will be on the call down in Florida, and I'll still be here running the board. So you'll hear me doing halftime. If you want to hear my voice again, stay tuned for the soccer game right after National Sports here in WEGL 91.1. This show is only going to be 45 minutes long to give us a 15-minute buffer between this show and the soccer game. It's going to be a good one. Auburn, Texas Tech, round 2. Played each other earlier in the year. So, to kick off National Sports this week, go ahead and do the 4 and Out segment where I give you my top 4 in the college football playoffs and the next 4 looking to sneak their way in. And for me, the top 3 has not changed from last week. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Clemson. And number 3, Notre Dame. I feel like those teams went out. That's gonna stay. That's gonna stay the same. That's gonna be consistent right there. Alabama, I still feel, is the best team in the nation. Clemson not far behind. Just because you're 2 doesn't mean I think Alabama's head over heels better than Clemson. But I think head to head, at least 6 times out of 10. At least 6 times out of 10, Alabama will get the victory. So, Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3. I know Notre Dame has been, I've always been wary of Notre Dame. I know I've always thought Notre Dame was always ranked high in the beginning of the season. And they proved me wrong. They proved me wrong. I think Notre Dame is a very good team this year, even with the injuries. I thought once the injuries started piling in that, they would just fall off the rock. But Notre Dame, number 3. Number 4, here we go. I'm gonna put Oklahoma State. It's Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Iowa. I'm just gonna give you 4, 5, and 6. Oklahoma State, Ohio State, I feel is interchangeable. It's just personal preference at that point, who's done better. I feel Oklahoma State would beat Ohio State because of Oklahoma State's offense. I just think they're explosive, and I think they could limit Ohio State. Ohio State will still score points, but I feel like they can get a couple turnovers, get a couple stops, and beat out Ohio State. Ohio State is at 5. For me, they've always been jumping back and forth between the 4th and 5th spot. Just depending on who does better or what Ohio State looks like. Then you have Iowa, which I'm going to get into this later. Iowa's been very perplexing, you could say. They kind of snuck up in there into the title hunt. And I see a lot of people starting to jump on this Iowa train, and they want to see the Hawkeyes get into the playoffs. It's gonna be real interesting what happens with Iowa in the next couple of games, especially their Big Ten championship match which, oh look, they're right next to Ohio State. They're probably most likely going to play each other unless, next after Iowa, number 7 is Oklahoma, and then number 8, Michigan State, which Michigan State may have a problem with Ohio State playing Iowa in the Big Ten Championship, because Michigan State can still win the Big Ten with a win over Ohio State this weekend and winning their next game after that. So now, that was my 4 and out. Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State are in. Ohio State, Iowa, Oklahoma, and Michigan State in that order are looking to find their way into the playoffs. So now I'm going to jump into into a couple of topics that I have for this week. In the beginning of the year, first show, I remember I was riding high on Michigan State. I said they would beat Ohio State November 21st. Mark it on your calendar. I know good friend Jelani Baptiste was just, we took the bet. Who's going to win? Michigan State, Ohio State. Well, this is it. This is the date. Michigan State, Ohio State, it's here. And, how do I feel about Michigan State beating Ohio State now? Well, I don't feel as, I'm not going to lie, I don't feel as good about Michigan State beating Ohio State, but I'm not going to abandon the Spartans. I still think they can pull off the win here. It's going to be interesting. JT Barrett's going to be back for his first game since the whole DUI problem situation that came up. In my opinion, it should have been 2 games, but that's here nor there. That's a whole nother discussion about, putting college players up to this standard. But he has 1 game suspension. I'm not too upset about it. Cardell came in and he did his thing. He got them the win. But I don't feel as good as I did with this game. But I still think they'll try and win. For the next game, what will happen? Well, for my next topic, what's going to happen to the Big 12? Well, here's one thing I can say about the Big 12. They don't have a championship game. That's problem number 1. That they should probably think about getting a championship game because the next 2 weeks are brutal for the Big 12. All their good teams are playing each other. I said it's going to even itself out, and here it is. It's going to even itself out in the next 2 weeks. But I can tell you this. The Big 12 title will be decided between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State next week. The winner of that game will be in the Big 12. Oh, we'll be in the Big 12. What's it going to be in? They're going to be the Big 12 champion. See, I'm thinking they have a championship game for the Big 12, and they don't. And my third topic, and it goes back to Iowa. I'm just not that sold on them yet. The last 2 games, they got to win against Indiana. They got to win against Minnesota. And that's great. 35-27 against Indiana. 40-35 against Minnesota. And they have a couple of big wins against Wisconsin, 10-6, really early in the season. And then when they blew out Northwestern 40-10, which I think that game really put them on the map. In my opinion, I didn't think Northwestern was that good of a team anyway. That's a different discussion. But that's the game that really put Iowa out there like, wait a second, this team is something different. It's not just some regular Big Ten team coming up there and getting an upset. This is actually an Iowa team that is decent, that's going to find its way into the top 10. So since the Northwestern game, I've been keeping my eyes on Iowa. And they're up there, but other than the Wisconsin-Northwestern wins, which Northwestern, again, I don't think Northwestern's that good, in my opinion. I think they're a decent football team, but I don't think they have very much talent. And with the Wisconsin, that was a good win. Wisconsin was struggling a little bit in that early part of the season, but now they've rallied off a couple of wins, so it looks better for Iowa. I just want to see how Iowa's going to play in the inevitable Big Ten championship, either against Ohio State or Michigan State. So I feel like Iowa's one of those teams that kind of squeaked by everybody else, and I'm kind of afraid of what's going to happen when they come out and play in this Big Ten championship against these tougher opponents. I may harp on Ohio State a lot, but they do have a lot of talent. I just kind of see how Iowa's gonna respond. The last 2 games have really concerned me with Indiana and Minnesota. Granted, Minnesota is one of those teams that has a lot of talent, but just can never win consistently. And Indiana has had bursts here and there throughout the season. So it doesn't surprise me that these teams kept it close. But the fact that Iowa is supposed to be this big powerhouse now, and they've been playing these teams, and a couple of times they find themselves squeaking by, it's starting to scare me a little bit. So I just want to see how Iowa plays on a bigger stage than Indiana or Minnesota. Well, that's going to do it for this part of the segment. When we come back here on National Sports on WEGL 91.1 FM, we're going to go over the big games this weekend. Once again, you're listening to WEGL 91.1 FM.
Hi, I'm Anthony Anderson, and on TV I play a dad who has it all. But growing up, my real life was very different. My parents taught me that tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. That's why they each had life insurance to take care of the future. I got my first policy when I was 18. Now, would your family be okay if something happened to you? If you can buy a latte, you can buy life insurance. It's that affordable. Join me in taking care of our family's futures at lifehappens.org.
A public service message from the nonprofit Life Happens.
One day, I'll teach chemistry to kids.
I'm going to be an architect.
My dream is to be a chef.
At the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Federal Student Aid, we provide more than $150 billion each year in grants, loans, and work-study funds, making higher education possible for anyone at any stage of life.
I can go back to college.
I can change careers.
I can make a difference.
Federal Student Aid, proud sponsor of the American Mind. Learn more about money for college at studentaid.gov.
Buying Girl Scout cookies probably looks very simple. You just buy a few boxes from a Girl Scout and that's it, right?
But you wouldn't believe the skills we learned by the whole experience of selling them. Ask us about our inventory. We have something for every taste. Notice our new boxes. They tell the story of what we do.
Ask us where the money goes. Our team gets to decide.
When a Girl Scout sells you cookies, she's building a lifetime of skills and confidence. This is what a girl can do. Girl Scout cookie season is here. Find your cookies at girlscoutcookies.org.
A message from DAV to all returning veterans. Thank you. Thank you for doing your duty. Thank you for doing our bidding. Thank you for laying it all on the line. Thank you for stepping up and not backing down. Thank you for putting your future on hold to put our enemies on notice. Thank you for putting your buddies' lives ahead of your own. Thank you for putting yourself in harm's way. Thank you for defending our freedom, for displaying your honor, for being a hero, even though you don't want to be called one. For all this and more, DAV thanks you, and we're here to help you. Expert DAV advisors will make sure you get the health, disability, and financial benefits you were promised and earned. If you're a veteran, visit DAV.org for free help. And again, thank you.
And welcome back to WEGL National Sports. WEGL. What am I even thinking? Even I'm ready for the break. Welcome back to National Sports here on WEGL 91.1 FM. In this segment, we're going to go over the games of the week, the biggest ones from college football. Before that, remember Auburn soccer, big playoff game in 44 minutes. Against Texas Tech down in Florida. WEGL 91.1 FM has the call. Britt Bowen is going to give you all the latest on that game starting at around 12:50. With that said, I know I said I would be done with the show about around 45, but instead I'm going to end it about 12:30, have a short little 30-minute show, go over the big games this week, give you some analysis, and play 30 minutes of music to get you ready for the game, and then boom, we're going to go right into it, and hopefully our girls can get the win in Texas against Texas Tech and get into their first Sweet 16. I know Karen Hopper is going to be ready for that game. focusing on games from this week, or focusing on games tomorrow. Games this week. First up, number 15 LSU at number 22 Ole Miss. For this game, I'm going to give LSU the victory. I know they've had a rough couple of weeks. They were handled by Alabama. Then Arkansas went in and just upset them. Ole Miss has been a little shaky as well. They've had their good games. They've had their bad. But I think LSU is going to turn it around right here. I think Les Miles knows what he has to do in order to get this victory against Ole Miss. He knows he has to get Leonard Fournette in the game, and he has to get his quarterback into a groove to get him to throw the ball. You got to put him in better situations, and he's going to have to mix it up. You know, you can't rely on Leonard Fournette the whole time. They're going to mix the run and pass a lot better than you've seen in the past 2 weeks. And Ole Miss, they're playing at home, but I think Ole Miss is really going to struggle trying to handle Leonard Fournette. Number 12, Michigan at Penn State. Now this is an intriguing one because Penn State is 7-3, but they've been flying under a lot of people's radars, and Michigan is sitting at 8-2, number 12 in the nation. Penn State is looking for a big marquee win for the season. I'm going to take Michigan in this one on the road. Harbaugh, he has his boys ready against Penn State because he knows what kind of team Penn State is. Penn State's going to be that type of team where if you don't show up, they can beat you. On Penn State, they played Ohio State looking for that big upset win. They didn't get it, but it's the next best thing for Penn State right here is to get that win against Michigan at home. So give the crowd something to cheer and love about. Another one is 21 Memphis at Temple. Memphis had a rough couple of games lately. The Houston one to be exact. And after the Ole Miss win, Memphis was kind of there, and now the Houston game happened, and they're kind of in a flux. They're playing Temple. Temple was one of those big marquee teams out there. They played Notre Dame in prime time. They came up short, and since then they fell out the rankings, but they're still a pretty good team. I'm going to take Temple on this one at home. I feel like Memphis is still trying to figure out where they're at, and the guy on the road to play Temple, a pretty good team, and I think Temple's going to surprise them by what they can do. All right, here's the big one. Time for me to put up or shut up. Number 9, Michigan State at number 3, Ohio State. I've been saying all along Michigan State will beat Ohio State from the beginning of the year. And now this is it. Put it on the record. I'm picking Michigan State to beat Ohio State at home. I know Connor Cook is going through some sort of injury. I know the team has had many of injuries throughout the year. They don't look as dominant as they were in the beginning, but Ohio State has the little spurts of greatness, and then, they kind of fall off the rock a little bit. I'm going to pick Michigan State. I've been on them since the beginning. I'm not going to run away from that now. I feel as though Michigan State will get the win here and go to represent their side in the Big Ten championship against Iowa. So we'll see where that goes. Here's another good one, and this one and Iowa's going to be looking closely at this game because the two teams they beat, Northwestern number 20 and Wisconsin number 25, are playing each other. Yeah. So Iowa's going to be looking at this game because one of these teams have to make them look good. Hopefully this will be a good matchup. Iowa's hoping that this will be a good matchup to kind of raise their stock in a sense. So number 20 Northwestern versus number 25 Wisconsin. I'm going to pick number 25 Wisconsin at home. I think, again, it comes back to Northwestern and how much talent do they have. I just think Northwestern is that team. I'm not very high on them this year. I'm just not very high on them. That kind of started when the whole Iowa game happened. I didn't think Northwestern was a very good team then. I think they have good players, but I think they could be outside the top 25, and not many people would say too much about it. Another one, Pac-12 football, number 24 USC at number 23 Oregon. I'm going to take USC on the road. The Trojans, they came alive, in the beginning of the year. Let me go back and say both these teams have come alive since their rocky start. USC with the whole head coach situation, him leaving, then Oregon, their quarterback getting hurt, their offense just stalling, their defense giving up major points. Both of these teams came back in impressive fashion. They're both ranked now. But I'm going to take USC. I think they're just a better team. I love their defense. I love the intensity that they're playing with. Here's two big ones. Number 10, Baylor at number 6, Oklahoma State. I'm taking Oklahoma State at home. Baylor, this is it. This was what I was talking about for weeks. Eventually, it's going to catch up on you. Your defense is going to catch up on you. The lack of depth that you have. You have a freshman quarterback, and he plays well, but he can only do so much. He's going to make mistakes. You saw it in the Oklahoma game. Toward the end, he tried to throw it up there, trying to make something happen through the interception. He's going to make mistakes. It's going to limit your offense a little bit until he gets his feet wet, and you saw it right there. I think this is going to be another loss for Baylor. They're going to fall back into the teens somewhere. And Oklahoma State is going to be looking toward playing Oklahoma next week. As for Oklahoma, number 18 TCU comes to visit Oklahoma, number 7 in the country. And I'm going to give Oklahoma the win as well. I feel that both Oklahoma teams will get the win this weekend at their respective houses. TCU, Trevon Boykin injured. I can't remember exactly if he's playing or not. But TCU, another Big 12 team that's gonna, they're gonna fade away because the Big 12, it looks like, is already shooking itself out. It's gonna be Oklahoma State, Oklahoma to decide the Big 12 champion, and then it comes down to, whoever wins that game, whoever becomes Big 12 champion, will they have a spot in the college football playoffs? Because you have Alabama, SEC, you have Clemson, ACC, you have Notre Dame, an independent, which means that with 3 power conferences left, being the Pac-12, the Big 10, and the Big 12, only one of those are getting in. I'm going to go ahead and tell you the Pac-12 is not getting in after what's happened. With Stanford losing, the Pac-12 is just not going to get in. So that leaves the Big 12, and that leaves the Big 10. So, put it this way. If, say my dream comes true, and Michigan State beats Ohio State, and they get into the Big Ten Championship, they beat Iowa. Will Michigan State, with 1 loss, jump into the playoff over an undefeated, let's say, Oklahoma State, because of, they're both champions, but because Oklahoma State is undefeated, do they get in? Well, you also have to look at the fact that Michigan State played an extra game. They played 13 games compared to Oklahoma State's 12. And in that last game that Michigan State played, they played probably a top 6, at least, Iowa team. So who's in? In my opinion, it'd be Michigan State. Now, turn it around, and if Michigan State won the Big 10 and Oklahoma won the Big 12, who gets in? I still think it's Michigan State because they played an extra game against a top opponent. And I think that goes back to the reason I think that's why the Big 12 should have a championship game, because the Big 10 has that extra game that the committee can look at to determine if they should be in the championship game, whereas the Big 12 does not. If the Big 12 had that extra game that pits two good teams against each other, that gives you another game if you win to add them to your resume. To say, hey, we beat this team. You should put us in the playoffs because look at this. And that's the reason I think the Big 12 should have a championship game. Let's talk about Auburn for a second. I know I got about 3 minutes left. So Auburn dropped a game this past week. It was sad. You hoped they could win, but they didn't. Georgia ended up beating Auburn 20-13. Auburn wasn't very explosive on offense. The defense was there. Defense has been playing well. I'll give them credit there. But Auburn, 5-5, got to play Idaho and number 2 Alabama, which, yeah, it's number 2 Alabama, but you know, rivalry games at home, anything can happen. But how will Auburn's season go from here on out? Well, I hope you guys like Montgomery, because like Montgomery Bowl may be the way to go for Auburn this year. I heard a lot of people saying they don't want to go to the Montgomery Bowl. That's kind of surprising, you know. Don't you want to go to a bowl game? Not if it's the Montgomery Bowl. Well, and if you want to ask what I think is going to win the Auburn-Idaho game, I think Auburn will win, but I wouldn't put money on it. And that hurts my feelings that I couldn't put money on it. That'll be it for National Sports here on WEGL 91.1 FM. Remember, in about 30 minutes at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, Auburn soccer will take on Texas Tech down in Florida, looking to get their first Sweet 16 victory. Or, Sweet 16 victory. What am I talking about? I'm ready to go. I really am. They're looking for their first appearance into the Sweet 16 in NCAA women's soccer. I'm Jared Dillard, your host for National Sports here on WEGL 91.1 FM. Everybody, have a good break. Hopefully, study for your finals. You don't want to be here for another semester. Goodbye, everybody.
Hey, this is Josh Jenkins from Green River Ordnance. You're listening to 91.1 Weagle FM.
To me,